Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. My name is Jay Cranda, right? It's not Neil Smith. It's Jay.
It is Jay.
It's Jay Cranda. Nils. Dude, so I got to talk to you about this. So this is kind of this podcast it's just kind of, we're going to talk about all sorts of things. So we're going to give a little techie. So I want to say,
techie.
So those who are listening, don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like you're lost. We just want to encourage you and to kind of like challenge you to be thinking about things. So I got to try out Microsoft's HoloLens. Have you heard about this thing?
Tell me about it.
So Microsoft's HoloLens is coming out in, I think, 2020 or something. So in a couple of years, it's funny thing is that's not that far off. It sounds weird, but it's like that's only
in tech world, that's like a century, a lifetime away.
That's true. So the whole idea is it's Oculus Rift, like bulky kind of idea where you put it over but it's augmented reality. They call it mixed reality as well.
Reality. Okay.
And so the idea is that it's think Google Glass but cool. Okay.
Google Glass but cool.
Okay. I'm just kidding. There's a bunch of Google people like freaking out right now. So I was sitting. So I have a friend who his name's Cam. He is the CEO of Faith VR. So go to faithvr.com. You can check it out. Really cool guy. He got a demo. He got a version of this thing because they might be building for it. And you put it on, and what it did was I'm sitting in this room, in this office room, and there was a wall, and it took the wall in front of me, and it broke a hole in a virtual hole, boom. And then all of a sudden these bugs
in the room that you're physically in.
Yes. So it took this physical wall, it added it actually took the wall and it made a digital hole in it. And it wasn't just like this graphic overlay. Like I was able to peer behind the wall into the hole, and I got to see depth. It was so crazy. And then all of a sudden these bugs start crawling on the actual wall, and they start crawling, and then they jump out at me and they're hovering. It's like,
is it scary? Like, did it freak you out a little bit?
If you saw me, I'd be jumping around. And so this tool, the HoloLens is bulky, and I know it will go down in size, but it was a crazy experience. It was, you think HoloLens, I think holodeck Star Trek. So it was so cool. And it started to make me think about augmented reality and mixed reality and how the heck that's going to, impact the world. And so, and so we're going to put a link of this in the show. I wrote about this on my blog, and there's also a post on Medium that I read about this idea of the dark horse of augmented reality, how everybody's talking about virtual reality, but how augmented reality might have a more powerful impact because virtual reality is so consuming. You have to put it on. Yeah. It's great and it's cool, but augmented reality is, and this is why it's mixed reality, it overlays with the real world. And the idea is that you can kind of like Terminator, you can see stuff, you can interact, and you can throw stuff up. So the idea is that I'm sitting at a real basketball court, and what if I could just take a virtual ball and I could shoot? Yeah. And the idea is that probably has more scalability because I can use it 24/7 versus virtual reality. I have to put something on and I have to kind of shut off. And so,
interesting.
So anyways, there's so many things I've seen. Go.
So so this just sounds like this Jetsons world you're living in. This is what we're moving into. But to understand the difference, and I'm going to try to communicate it, and then I'm going to read from a website. Virtual reality would be if, say, you're at a Lakers game and you're sitting there and you could virtually be at the game and watch the game. Yeah. Augmented reality would be like if you could virtually throw a basketball into the hoop, a virtual basketball towards the goal would be more of an augmented reality experience. So it takes the virtual reality to the next level. Reading about it on augment.com, it says virtual reality is an artificial computer-generated simulation or recreation of a real-life environment or situation. And then scrolling down to augmented reality is a technology that layers computer-generated enhancements atop an existing reality in order to make it more meaningful through the ability to interact with it. So that's kind of the difference.
Yeah.
I remember probably 18 months ago was the first time I put on an Oculus Rift headset. And it was one of those just like, holy cow, like I feel like I'm there. And then I was in Silicon Valley and was invited to a place called Z Space, and they do augmented reality. I thought it was the same thing. And there I just put on like a pair of glasses and I got to their like augmented reality machine. Well, it's as if, so what they had me work on is they do educational augmented reality. And so I was able to take apart a car engine piece by piece and move these pieces around. And they're like, try to take a bite of it. And I mean, it felt like I could like grab this and take a bite of it. Now, it wasn't there when it actually got to my mouth, but it was so real. And then I could dissect a frog, and they said instead of physically the gross smell and the nausea of actually dissecting a frog, you can still learn of all these body parts and physically take things apart, pull them away from the frog itself. So those are some of the practical applications in an educational environment. But it was so real. I think that's what blew me away. And honestly, that was 18 months. That was maybe a year ago now that I did the augmented reality experience. Where do you see this going? Like what's the practical application for all of this?
Well, and I think, for those who are at churches, you're thinking like, okay, we're just trying to figure out this and this. And I would say that's okay. I think the technology has a lot of evolving, and nobody at the end of the day, augmented and virtual, the more they slim down the glasses or however, or the more that they can integrate it into maybe people who wear glasses or contacts, that's when you start getting to, and the more the augmented stuff is slimmed down to mobile phones and stuff like that, that's when you're going to actually get true scalability in that. The same way Google Cardboard actually, as much as how cool Oculus Rift is, way more people use Google Cardboard than anything, because that's, it's a scaled down. Now, Google Cardboard is a fraction of the power of Oculus, both in power and, quality, but it's because, not everybody's going to be able to afford to buy an Oculus Rift at the moment. And so I think we are still, we're ways away from it to be, this huge experience. But I think for a church, I think it's going to lead to more powerful discipleship experiences. It's going to lead to more compelling weekend experiences. And I think outreach events. I think in those levels, I think just the same way educationally you can take apart a frog and it's compelling, what if as you're talking about, Jerusalem, you can throw up, here's the temple, and people can walk around. It's so compelling, to interact the same way. Virtual reality, I think still has a way that there's a teaching element, that the idea is that when you put on virtual reality glasses and you are consumed in an area, you're so focused. And, the same way, meetings, and I know like Star Trek has joked around about this with the holodeck forever, that, when I'm doing a meeting with you and I have video, I'm sitting there, but what if we were in a room and there's the HoloLens, you're augmented right in front of me, and I can now read not only your face in a two-dimensional kind of experience, now I can read your gestures. And there's so much that happens face to face that if I could read, you've been talking to somebody and all of a sudden, they start, like maybe itching their face or they're looking around and you see their feet bounce, an augmented meeting you could get a full interview, really, a full understanding of what's going on. So I think it's going to lead to more relational stuff. And I think the relational connection and bonding, both the good and bad there in the augmented experience and maybe even the virtual experience coming along, that it will lead to more meaningful ways. And I think people will start to get the full potential, and more churches can really start leveraging both counseling and so many things that can be deeper, that right now, the way Web 2.0 is, it's great, and we're seeing like the tip of the iceberg of the potential of connection, but all that other stuff I think will just blow it up. I think it will be so much more.
I think that's an interesting perspective of the personal connection that you suggested with it, because I think we naturally can go to like video games and like, you can create a Bible, experience for kids from an educational perspective. And I do think that needs to be created and will be created. One of the things at Z Spot that they mentioned was that one of the newer uses of augmented reality is basically holographic video conferencing. And so for you and I to kind of see each other, not just screen to screen, which enhances our communication significantly, but basically kind of hologram to hologram, which sounds weird to us right now, but so would have what you and I are face to face right now on Zoom. This would have seemed weird, 10, 20 years ago. And now this is the norm. This would have been like, oh, we're going to see each other just like Pee Wee Herman used to do back on the show. Like this is real though. This video conferencing is real technology that everyone has access to on their mobile devices. I think augmented reality is also going to be a part of our reality in the near future. It sounds so weird, but I think, and you and I'd say this all the time of like, just pay attention to it. Yeah. It's not going to be tomorrow. And just like you said, it's 2020, that this is really going to be coming out. But it's coming, and it's going to become a significant part of our daily lives.
Well, I've seen versions of augmented reality. Crayola did a coloring book, where it was like, all laid out where you can do an augmented experience. I've seen magazine advertisements where I had a friend who's on staff at Saddleback, Rob Jacobs, him and I were talking about this, that there was this magazine that they were doing like augmented experiences where you would have this ad and you would pull open the app and it would be like a skateboard ad and there would be a skateboard that you can play with. And it's like the market is already trying to figure it out. Now the beauty is the church, we don't have to spend all this money to waste to figure out how to, the marketplace will figure out the place of this. And so all you got to figure out once the users, there's a saturation of the market where it makes worth it. And this is where I think the biggest thing, I was listening, actually, Malcolm Gladwell has a new podcast called Revisionist History. And they were talking about this idea of why don't good ideas always win? And it was really an interesting podcast. And he was talking about Rick Barry, about the basketball player, how percentage wise, it's more, it makes more sense to shoot a basket underhand.
Yep.
For bigger guys, and like the percentages are crazy. Yeah. And you can listen to the podcast for the whole thing, but they said like there's only 2 people that do it in the NBA now. And in college. And the one player is Rick Barry's son. Okay. The second one is this guy from Kenya. So like the only 2 reasons, and how really it is statistically a better proven. Wilt Chamberlain, when he made 100 points, he was shooting underhand. Wow. So all these crazy things, but the idea is that we tend to not go places where people haven't been already. Yeah. We tend to be afraid of change, and we tend to be afraid of all these risks that are kind of not inherently. So even if it's a good idea, and so I think mixed reality, all this stuff, whatever it is, I get it. Nobody's doing it yet in the church. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be experimenting. And I think risking just some time to be thinking about what the future could look like is the church sometimes is so slow to try new things. And the beauty, and the other thing is we need to be willing to learn from other people. And I think there are some churches, both small, medium, and large, and even crazy big, that are doing some cool things. And we need to be willing to share. And I can't wait to see churches. And if you already know a church messing around with augmented reality, let us know so that we can talk about it on the show. Because I think there's so many things that the broader community, and that's where online and stuff has connected more of the community. So, So
there's two ministry features that I know of that are doing augmented reality. And I meant to mention them earlier. The first I met out there in your area, Jay, is the guys at Fisherman Labs are working on a project called Sprout Box. And it's a box for kids. And basically what they've done is you put together a puzzle and you download the app. And when you scan over the puzzle with your phone, the video begins to play on top of the board that you created as a puzzle. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an augmented reality experience. It's very kind of entry point into augmented reality. It's not as like complex some of the stuff you've done where you're like shooting a basketball or things like that, but you're kind of controlling the experience, and it looks like those people are sitting on your kitchen table, in the experience. So it's a pretty cool one. And Group Publishing did something similar with their Vacation Bible School. They have these little tokens that kids can get, and using the group app, an action character will pop out of that token if you scan it with your phone, and you can then interact with that character through the phone. So it is crazy. I have an app on my watch that has a little dinosaur that my kids can interact with from my phone, doing the little scan on the Apple Watch. So there's some fun, interesting things happening. This is, Jay, though, just the beginning of how this technology can be used. They're only scratching the surface. Because honestly, it's pretty expensive development-wise to develop these things out. But you can get so creative. I've only seen it for kids. I haven't seen it, for more practical use. But do you know there's going to be practical use?
Oh yeah, it's so powerful. So what we would love is we're going to put some links to some different things we talked about in the show notes. Explore that. If you've seen something with augmented reality, both in the church or in ministry use, please share it with us. Use that hashtag SMC podcast and visit socialmedia.church to learn more and explore past shows. Thanks so much again for listening this week.